Well, thank you for the coffee, Dave.
Welcome, Jeff. You're welcome, Jeff.
Well, as your AOR, I'm contractually obligated to fawn over your guys' digital strategy and give you major props. In terms of how you guys embrace mobile.
We already paid the bonus, Jeff. Don't worry about it.
Thank you. In the context of we talk about mobile in this industry, that it's not just a channel, it's not just a tactic, it's not just a line item, but it's an actual approach that looks as mobile as a platform and a way to engage audiences by providing them utility. And in that context, you guys sort of this whole idea manifests itself with your recent launch of the Dunkin mobile app, which hit the stores this past August. So from your guys' perspective, in terms of embracing a mobile-first strategy, can you guys talk about like sort of your inception for that internally from a Dunkin perspective?
Sure. It probably goes back a couple of years where we started to realize that as an on-the-go brand, we really needed to be in mobile. It's actually strategically very well aligns where we want to be. Dunkin is a place where you want to be efficient, you want to get in, you want to get out, you want to have value and get on with what it is that you do during your day. And we felt that mobile was a place that really helped meet that need, as well as all of the buzz, obviously, that was happening in the mobile space. And our realization that, quite honestly, as mobile technologies and mobile devices continue to evolve, consumers are going to align with brands, and they wanted their brands to be there. And if their brands weren't going to be there, then they may go find other brands that could deliver what they wanted to do. So we had that kind of strategic philosophy. But like many companies, we just didn't know where to start. And we kind of got lucky, to be quite honest, because we had the blending of a perfect storm. One was alignment with both executive leadership and our franchisees. Now, we're for all intent and purposes, 100% franchised organization, which means that you really have to get the buy-in of thousands of small business owners across the country before you can do anything major. We're not a company that can make all of the decisions that we want on our own, because our job is to drive traffic into our stores that are owned by our franchisees. So there really had to be a sound strategic practice in place. And the other side of the equation was the technical infrastructure to be able to do what we wanted to do. Where the stars aligned was a decision that was made more than 2 years ago for us to standardize our point-of-sale systems. Prior to that, we had had several different, 3-4 different point-of-sale systems within our restaurants in any given DMA across the country. And that creates a lot of problems for companies who need their POS to be intelligent tools for them to use to manage the business, because you have to develop across 3 to 4 different platforms, and you have to train across 3 to 4 different platforms, which can become very expensive. So when we made the decision to go to one platform, folks on my team said, that's fantastic, but when you do that, make sure you go to a 2D barcode scanner, because we know that mobile is going to be important down the road, and we have to make sure that our POS can recognize and read things off of a mobile screen. We do a lot of couponing, we do a lot of promotions, and so we knew that one was going to be important. You'll see out in retail today, there aren't that many companies. There are a few, but there aren't that many who can actually read off of a mobile device on the screen, and that's because they've got old school scanners, and they have to make a capital investment in swapping all that stuff out, which isn't easy. And that's why you're seeing somewhat of a lag in the uptake of mobile technologies at POS. So now we had really two of the most important pieces of the puzzle. We had alignment amongst executive leadership and franchisees that mobile was going to be important, and we were marching down a path of a technology infrastructure that was going to enable us to recognize that.
And to that point, in terms of like overcoming those challenges at the franchisee level, like how were you able to convince them to see this as an opportunity for them and truly embrace sort of a mobile technology that was sort of new to the organization overall?
Yep. A huge strategic priority for Dunkin is to get as many people to pay with the Dunkin' Donuts card as we can. And there's a lot of reasons for that, almost all of which are founded in the economics of the payments business. Just for ease of understanding's sake, it's much more profitable for a franchisee to accept a Dunkin' Donuts card as a method of payment than almost any other method of tender, including cash, because cash has cash handling and potential for theft and all those kind of things. And the fees, both interchange fees and processing fees on debit and credit, is also very, very expensive. So what really got the franchisees excited, along with they knew that they needed to be in the mobile game, was that we could put a Dunkin card now on a mobile device and use that technology as a way to start to incent people, right, as mobile technologies grew, to start adopting the Dunkin card as their primary method of payment every time they visited a Dunkin. Now, one of the challenges that we have with that is people typically think of the Dunkin card as a gift card. Use it once and throw it away. But our card has always been reloadable. In fact, you can set it up on auto recharge and have it automatically put money on there all the time, which is a behavior that we've been trying to reinforce with our guests for several years. The mobile device now gave us another vehicle to do that. That was cool. It was forward thinking, but at the baseline, it could drive franchisee profitability, and that was really what we used to try to drive their adoption of it.
In terms of those people that are uneducated around the Dunkin app, and I'm sure after this conversation, everybody will have leaving the room having downloaded it. But the idea of what is the actual app itself, and what role does that play in terms of the consumer experience at Dunkin?
Yep. So when we there was a lot of whiteboard sessions and a lot of brainstorming about what we wanted the app to do. But something that was fundamentally important for us was that it was going to be purely functional. Everything that we built in there was going to have a very specific purpose that could add ease and convenience to our guests' lives. So we call it functional and no fluff is kind of what we had thought. And initially we thought about putting some fluff stuff in there, and who knows, we may put some fluff stuff in there at some point. But we wanted it to be very functional around driving franchisee profitability and being a very effective marketing tool. So as well as a tool where people could find where their nearest Dunkin was. So we have a lot of people who travel, a lot of guests who travel, and they want to know where the nearest Dunkin is wherever they're going. And this was one way to do that. So we built in payment, as we've talked about, so that people could now start paying with their phone in our restaurants through the creation of turning a regular Dunkin card into a virtual Dunkin card with a QR code and simply scanning that. We instituted offers. So we're in roughly about 100 DMAs, maybe a little bit more than that now, across the country. And we geo-target offers across the entire country now based on what franchisees in those markets want to present at that given time. So store driving activity, and much more cost-effective than FSIs and other paper-based ways of putting offers and promotions and coupons into the market. We did digital gifting. So you now, through the Dunkin app, have the opportunity to give somebody a virtual Dunkin card. You can send it through email, SMS, or through Facebook. And if somebody has the app already on their phone, they can simply upload that to the app. If they don't, you can just simply go in and scan it at the restaurant, or if you get it via email, you can print it out and bring it in and do that. And then our store locator, so people could find us easily. So if you actually look at the home screen for the app, you've got payment, you've got offers, you've got gifting, and you've got location. Each one of those things actually helps drive the business in some shape or form, as well as help the bottom line profitability of franchisees. So we were very, very focused on that.
And I guess to that point, in terms of what it's able to do for the business, can you talk a little bit more about the successes that we've seen so far in terms of the app itself?
Yep. So we launched last August, so not quite a year yet. We just passed the 2 million download threshold, as you well know. You were very helpful in that. Back in the first quarter. And we're seeing a continual growth in mobile purchases, so in the restaurants using the phone to buy stuff, mobile reloads. In fact, the average reload, which basically means that you're reloading the Dunkin card that's on your phone, you're reloading that and putting more money on that to spend. The average reload is about 20% higher on the mobile device than it is in what we've seen historically in our restaurants. So people are, because of the convenience of it, they're putting more money, which is great for us. Redemptions are growing. Offer redemptions are growing. So as we put more offers out there across the country that you can use, walk in and scan the coupon with your app, those redemptions are growing, and gifting is growing. So far, so good in terms of our ability to actually get guests to use it.
I mean, to that point, I mean, we're talking about a monumental shift in consumer behavior, given the context that not many people here are familiar with the idea of mobile walleting, let alone are doing that and activating that at point of purchase. So to that point, like, you know, how are we, like, from a Dunkin standpoint, looking at in terms of how we're changing that behavior? Are there specific things that we're doing and you're doing specifically to encourage people to sort of adopt this sort of new behavior?
So we're pretty active in social media with it. We're promoting it within our email channels as well as within DunkinDonuts.com. We've got a significant amount of media that has been really doing very, very well for us. In fact, I'll give Jeff some kudos because the Hill Holiday team has really helped us build a great media plan around acquisition. But not only is it very effective in acquisition with great CPAs, but through the SDK tagging that we're doing, we're actually able to track all of the behavior of those people once they're actually within the app. So that's how we're understanding the impact and the growth of things like redemptions and reloads, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got a great baseline of analytics that we can actually take a look at and really understand how it's moving the business. So as well as in our restaurants, hopefully most of you are probably in a Dunkin at least once a week, hopefully more. Hopefully you're actually starting to see more of the mobile app merchandising in our restaurants, which was something that we didn't do specifically in the first quarter, but we're going to be heavying up that in the second quarter.
And then in terms of moving forward and going forward, like, what are like the sort of the new things that we can expect in terms of the app upcoming? Like, what's next for the app into itself, building upon the successes that have been to date in terms of the features and the functionality? How else is this sort of going to evolve going forward?
I can't, obviously for confidentiality reasons and competitive reasons, I can't speak to specifics, but we just actually back in the first quarter integrated with Passbook. So now you can upload your virtual Dunkin' card into Passbook if you want to use that. And we've got several other features that we're working on for this year, again, that align very strategically with our business in terms of trying to deliver incremental cost savings and trying to drive more store traffic. And something particularly, and again, I apologize for not being able to get to the details of it, but there's actually a ticket growth driver initiative that's going to be coming up as well. So more frequency, cost-effective channels, and growing average ticket are things that we're going to continue to work on with the app itself.
I mean, technically, with the app itself, we actually have a built-in loyalty platform, technically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the grand scheme of it, in terms of the bigger picture, like, how is mobile and this app and what we've been doing in the sort of mobile space, sort of, how does it help evolve the overall digital strategy across the board, as well as marketing strategy?
Yeah, I think you guys, I'm assuming everybody lives here, so you've seen how much money we spend on TV. If you're in between innings in a Red Sox game, you'll see 4 to 8 Dunkin' commercials at any given time in that 2.5 minutes. So we spend a lot of money on TV. But quite honestly, we do that because TV works for us. It's a channel that is actually very, very effective in helping us. We launch a new product almost every single month now, so it helps really drive scale and awareness around that. But that being said, on the digital side, we really now have a mobile-first mentality. So everything that we think about now in the digital space. And as we start to think about our mix strategy in a 360 perspective in terms of how online and offline can work together, mobile first is really kind of the marching order. And how can we deliver as much value through the device as we can to achieve our strategic objectives?
Now we have a way to actually tie back real ROI across all our digital touch points and actually have a way for us to actually create a meaningful engagement, even more so than we ever have, because it all kind of leads back to this sort of mobile device and to the app itself. So It's big from that perspective.
Yep.
In terms of the group overall and brands in general, is there any sort of advice you would offer to those looking to get into the mobile space and what that advice may be?
Yeah, I think if you're not in mobile yet, or even if you are, I think the first thing is it seems so overwhelming. I mean, I go to a lot of mobile conferences, and some of you may as well, and there are so many different arguments and points of view and perspectives about where mobile's going and how is it going to morph over time, and what payment mechanism. Is it going to be NFC? Is it going to be QR? Is it going to be something else? And all the different things that go out. The one thing that I would say is couple things actually. One, think about your brand strategy. What is it that your overall business is trying to achieve? And then figure out how mobile can tie with that very specifically. So for us, for instance, it was all about payment, right? We're trying to get more people to pay with the Dunkin card. This was a great way to try to make that happen. So don't go into mobile for mobile's sake. Go in there with an alignment with your senior leadership, who if they don't get why you're doing it, then your project probably won't last very long. But alignment with senior leadership about what you want to do, why you want to do it, and then go build to that. And don't be afraid to just do a few things really, really well first. You don't have to boil the ocean all in one fell swoop. I think sometimes, because brands want to be leaders in the space and they want to try to do everything at once and go out there with the best that they can possibly do, it somewhat freezes you a little bit because there's so much to do, you're not quite sure where to start. So pick off the low-hanging fruit first. Start in a place. Believe me, your consumers will give you the opportunity to improve. They will welcome the opportunity to give you feedback about what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong and what they want. And have it really kind of be a flexible roadmap so that you can not only meet the needs of the business, but listen to what your consumers are saying and make sure that you're meeting their needs too.
Yeah, and I definitely at that point, like in terms of like all the social listening that we have done and understanding what does our consumer and core base really want from us from a brand standpoint, and it's always been about free coffee. It's been about better experiences at the actual stores themselves, better convenience. So to that point, with offers and a quicker way to sort of transact at point of purchase, the Dunkin app actually delivers upon those things. So you guys built this around with the idea of the consumer in mind first and foremost, and providing them with the real utility that they find valuable in their day-to-day lives.
I think that, especially in our business, we're a relatively low-ticket business, right? I mean, you're coffee and a breakfast sandwich or, an iced coffee and a sandwich for lunch. So we're relatively low-ticket compared to most of our competitive set. And I just lost my train of thought of exactly what I was going to say. That's awful. I need more coffee, apparently. What was your question? Well, I
was going to say, into kind of where you're going with this, is that it gives us a huge opportunity to grow other business needs in terms of new challenges and marketing challenges that we have. So growing the PM day part, we have this great sort of business in the AM that we're trying to protect, but our real opportunity is in the PM. So now we actually have a way to actually reach out to those best and loyal users that we have and message to them directly with an incentive potentially to get them into the stores in the afternoon.
That's right, and that reminded me of exactly what I wanted to say. So my whole point was saying that we're a low ticket is that every time we discount, when you're a low ticket business and you're discounting stuff, you're eating into a significant part of your profitability. I'm a firm believer, actually, that our business and businesses in general if you can develop a significant competitive advantage by delivering a seamless digital strategy that's based on function and utility, I think you can use that to really drive the business and not have to discount as much. Whenever Apple has a great following, right? Very loyal to the bone people, and some hate them, but some love them. And whenever I find an Apple loyalist, I say, "Are you a member of their loyalty program?" And they say, "Their loyalty program? I didn't know they have one." I said, "They don't. Then why are you so loyal?" Oh. You don't need a loyalty program to have loyal customers. What you need to deliver is a product and an experience that inform, function, can meet the needs of what they want, anticipate the needs of maybe where they want to be, and just deliver against that. And I think, one thing that I'm committed to is trying to figure that out for our brand, because we don't want to discount. And we probably always will. But again, 50 cents off a coffee, when the coffee is $2, that takes a big chunk out of profitability. And so if I can create value and therefore create loyalty among our consumers by delivering a kick-ass app and a fully integrated digital experience, I think, that's in the long term really what's best for the business.
And you see that, again, across all our touch points right now, there is an element of the mobile story that's included there because that gives us some way to connect the dots across all our outbound communications, which has been fantastic for us. In terms of the inception, again, going back to what we originally started, like you actually had to make a business case and actually prove this to the internal organization and to the finance department that this could actually turn and become profitability, within a certain time period. So can you talk a little bit about the idea of like, we're just not going to build an app and just take the money and do so, but rather make a strong business case internally in order to be able to do so?
Yeah. So again, it was really founded really on two big things. One was payment. So we made assumptions around if we can migrate a certain percentage of cash payments and a certain percentage of debit credit payments to the Dunkin card, right? We actually can quantify the cost savings that that represents for a franchisee because we know what the processing costs for those transactions are. So it's simply a matter of get this many downloads, get this percent of the people paying on Dunkin card, and then instead of those transactions being debit, credit, cash, they're this, and so therefore there's your cost savings. We also looked at the ability to deliver offers through the app instead of spending money in FSIs and other printed materials. There are some significant cost savings in being able to do stuff that is very similar, but do it in a virtual way where the distribution costs and the production costs are a fraction of what they are in the physical world. So, that was really kind of the fundamental element of the business case. And the gifting too, because the gifting was just another element to driving more store traffic profitably.
It just makes it more fun and engaging for the consumer to interact and engage with the
Right.
app itself.
Yep.
Actually, how has the response been at the franchisee level? At the end of the day, like, have they found this to be actually productive for them?
Yep, I think franchisees love it. I think they're very excited by it. Franchisees will, once they really like something and they see that it's doing a lot for you, they just want more and more and more and more, faster. So we're going as fast as we can in terms of development, in terms of enhancement, and to really start to drive, and quite honestly, just in terms of penetration of getting people who have downloaded the app now to use it for payment, for offers, for gifting. Just because you build it, again, doesn't mean that everybody's just going to flock to it. There has to be a real value proposition there. So we continue to work on that stuff so that we can continue to grow the business profitably.
And I guess futuristic type thinking, I know you can't divulge too much in terms of what the plans are for the future, but does this sort of lead towards if you had to pontificate, a sort of seismic shift in terms of the overall consumer experience where you may not even have to have an actual conversation with an actual person behind the actual counter itself? And to that point, are we just sort of walking into stores and sort of picking up our coffee and leaving?
I guess time will tell. I think our crew actually, let's face it, we're also friggin' tired of talking to machines half the time. VRU systems where you call, you're just trying to get a simple question answered, and you're sent to a mindless maze of, pick 6 or pick 7 or pick this. Or I'm always trying to figure out, all right, when do I hit 0 just to talk to an agent, because that's really all that I want to do. But at the end of the day, we are a people business. Our franchisees are, for the most part, small business owners who feel very tied to their local community. A lot of them do a lot of work. In this area, the Boston franchisees do a tremendous amount of work for the Jimmy Fund. And there's groups like that all over the country, and they're very, very committed to local business, or to local charitable organizations, to community, etc. And the people that work in the restaurants are the people that live and work in the community. So I think that's always going to be an important part of our business. But if we can figure out ways to make the transactions more efficient for the crew, so I don't see the people behind the counter
just making their
going
lives
away,
easier.
but how do I make it easier for them to do their job, so that we can continue to deliver guest satisfaction, we can continue to deliver speed for our guests in the morning who are just trying to get to work. So that's really what the goal is how to drive efficiency into the business model, the operational model of the business using technology.
To that point, is there anything you'd like to add, or to that point, do we
The only
open
thing
up
I
to
would say
questions?
is if you haven't had a chance to get out today, days like today were built for Dunkin' iced coffee. So there's one, I did, but
Shameless
Zanella
plug.
drank all of it. So there's one right at South Station across the street if you don't know where one is on your way home. So please feel free to stop by and grab one, or 2,
Use your app.
all week. And use your app.
Any questions in the back?
Yeah, thanks for the question. We do have a push notification strategy. If you'll notice, we do not have push yet. and there are some business reasons behind that, but it will be coming. And I've seen, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Urban Airship. They're out of the Northwest, I think Seattle or Portland or somewhere. Smart guys, know a lot about push, do it for some high-powered apps. Like if any of you have the ESPN Score Center app, every time you get the ding when the Sox start or the Bruins scored a goal or the Celtics lose or that was a joke, Celtics lose. That's all powered by Urban Airship. So they've got some great technology, but I think their vision for the future is that push is actually going to become a very personalized experience at the individual guest level, right? So it's going to be a way for brands to connect with their consumers in a very relevant, personal way based on time of day, geolocation, all those kind of things. And while I think, there are some things that you can do with that, through SMS, I think because of the technical implications and applications that push has, I think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. So we definitely have a strategy around it. I personally am very bullish on it. I think it can be a difference. Now, it's going to be, there's a lot of work that's going to have to go into that, right? So if you're sitting at Fenway, and I know you're in Fenway, and I know you have the Dunkin mobile app, and I can send you something about Dunkin related, but applicable to the Red Sox game, that's freaking fantastic, right? And I can do the same at Gillette, and I can do the same at the Garden. And unfortunately, because we have a big relationship with the Yankees, I can do the same at Yankee Stadium, which is, again, unfortunate, but whatever. But stuff like that, to me, I think can really become a game changer, and brands should really start to think about how they want to leverage that kind of stuff, because I think we're just on the cusp of what push can do strategically for brands. Yeah.
I mean, a real opportunity for us to keep connected between purchasing, at the end of the day, too. Like, we can deliver some sort of content to those consumers during those periods of time that they'd be open for it, like a 3 o'clock in the afternoon type break, brought to you by Dunkin with a piece of content they may find valuable. There is that opportunity. So keeping us connected, but doing so with understanding what that consumer behavior is and why they'd welcome that type of sort of touch points. So any other questions?
Life. And one of the things that Dunkin does so well that I've noticed is that your social media strategy and, presence on Facebook, Twitter, just making everything feel like a community. How do you see your social media aligning with your mobile strategy and even your app strategy?
I think they are going to be very interwoven moving forward. When we initially launched the app, so the function that's there right now is you can follow us or fan us, Twitter and Facebook. That's there. We're taking a look at Foursquare as well for some integration opportunities there. But I think another great quote that I heard recently was, actually it was made by Kevin Vine, somebody on my team, and he was speaking at a social media conference. But brands are no longer who they want to be. They're what consumers say they are, which I think is very, very true. So, I think there's a tremendous opportunity to weave in the opportunity and the satisfaction of form and function that we can deliver through mobile and reinforce that in terms of what's happening within social media. And I think, but again, to me, it gets back to what do we want to do as a brand? What are the communications that we want to put out there? And how do we want to have a 360 approach? I'm still pushing for the relationship between, for my brand, other brands do it and do it well, but the relationship between mobile, social, and television. Right? So there's a lot of Dunkin' TV, as I mentioned. You guys see it all the time. And so, what I'm very focused on is how do we take those three things and really kind of put them together into creating a new experience for guests where we can drive some kind of value, drive adoption, and perhaps leverage social media as a tool to propagate kind of the good word. So it's all there. It's just figuring out strategically how all those pieces fit together.
Any other questions? We have a little bit more time. I think we have more for one question.
Asking about locations with drive-throughs, does that create a barrier at all for people being willing to pass over their mobile device to then have to go to the register with
it? We haven't found it to be a barrier yet. I mean, it's not the most convenient thing in the world. I mean, before you had to pass, your credit card over or your cash over, and Now, you know, you got to kind of stick your phone out, and the scanners that we have at our drive-throughs actually we try to meet you halfway. But it's still a little inefficient because I call it the dance that we do between the crew and the phone. They have the scanner and they have the phone, and you're kind of doing this, right, to make sure that you can.
It's like it's a middle school dance.
Right. So yeah, exactly. So and you know what that does? It slows down the drive-through. And if I slow down the drive-through, that costs me sales. So we're trying to make that experience better. We actually have some ideas about how to make that experience better that we're working on right now. But again, we didn't, you know, we knew that was going to be a problem, but we didn't want to let that fear influence just the general agreement that we know that we needed to move forward. So you could. That's actually been discussed. Yep. Thanks for letting the cat out of the bag.
Sign an NDA. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.